Hey, hey, hey. It's your boy Nate. I usually read books because reading is sexy, and if you're not reading, you're not sexy. But today we have our February watches. Let's talk movies. Here we go. So for February, I watched 15 movies for February. It was a busy month, so I didn't usually get to like high 20s that I usually like to be at, but it's all right. It's still very early on in the year. We're fine. Gonna go in order. So, from 1982, I watched The Sender. This was supposed to be a follow-up to a Brian De Palma film, and it was mentioned in my recent reading of Quentin Tarantino's Cinema Speculation. But I thought this was just fine. It suffers from that like early 80s thing where it relies too heavily on exposition, like 30-40 minutes of the film, and then it starts to get interesting after that. And all of the special effects and everything are saved. But what we have is a man who is sent to a mental institution because he has telepathic abilities. It's fun when it gets fun. There are some really great practical effects. The horror is sustained in not really knowing why these things are occurring because it gets a bit biblical, so you're thinking, is it religion? Is he a second coming of Christ in some way? 2, is he just crazy? 3, is it like actual telepathic abilities that just exist in some other realm? It ends on a high note and goes into full swing with its special effects, but outside of that, kind of just falls flat. Under Roger Christensen's direction, it just feels kind of bland. Just doesn't elevate to where it needs to be. If you like Brian De Palma, I think you'd really like this. Another Tarantino mention, I watched Hell Night out of 1981. This is your basic high school kids go to a haunted house and they are on a dare where they have to stay over the night. Lots of odd happenings occur and murders. Pick off these kids one by one. It's okay for what it is. Linda Blair is in it, and they really did her dirty. Didn't give her enough screen time in the beginning, and then she makes it in the end. It's just one of those okay B-horror flicks where there's too much sex, not enough gore, ends in this like really flat, laughable way. It's just like, well, that was fun. But yeah, if you want to see early Linda Blair, this is good. Next up, I watched The Girl with the Needle from last year. And oh my god, this one was so bleak. It is about a woman who has everything wrong going on in her life, has a baby, and delivers this baby to this candy shop owner who hands over the baby to other mommies and daddies in need. But it gets worse and horrific from there. It's a strong look at mother and daughter relationships, female friendships, female relationships, and how nasty it all is. There's this animosity that's always occurring between the relationship of women. Because it's shot in black and white, because we have Dutch tilts, because we have so much going wrong, it's never ending, and you start to wonder, is there ever really any hope for this woman? Is there anything good at all to see in the world? And it's a bleak one. Hard to watch at times, and there's just a scene in there where I'm just like, oh my god, that did not just happen. But it did. There are some images in here that have stayed with me, and yeah, very harrowing watch. Next up, I watched Shakersss out of this year. I think this is for MoMA, done by Solange. Yes, Solange knows, the queen herself, where it's literally her on an island, dancing to music, being in the water, having a good time, meditating, and that's all there is. It's all shot on camcorder, and there's just this like beautiful look at Black expression and Black freedom. Little do we ever get to see that done in its own like bountiful way, and Solange on this island, we get to see all of that. You can see little bits and pieces of it, either through really fun big brass sounds that she listens to, trumpets as well, and just like her movements, her choreography. It's all implemented in her identity and in her music. So her music is essentially part of her design language, and I just love seeing that. Love Solange, love everything that she does, and always doing the good work. Definitely worth your 8 minutes. It's on her site, essentially, but I believe it's screening at the MoMA. Super cool. From last year, I watched Nickel Boys. Oof, what a good one. I have actually, in fact, read Colson Whitehead's Nickel Boys. I did not know that. Just like recently remembered. But anyway, it's about a black boy who is sent to a mostly white boarding school, sort of like boot camp in essence, in order to be disciplined more, but that discipline gets a bit too much, especially on the black body. The experiences against all of the black individuals at this school become glum in a way that I think represents the heart of America and its distaste, how it behaved, how it has antagonized black people and black experiences. There's great callbacks of Martin Luther King, news images and videos, photographs, but it's all done in this first-person point of view that shifts. So it's doing something really experimental in a way where it literally puts you in the shoes of the black experience, but no matter how far you put yourself in those shoes, you will never be able to grasp what it actually felt like. This is essentially a story of archiving and making sure that lost stories are told. Beautifully done. There's this delicate nature to it where most of the scenes feel like snapshots and they feel like memories, very fleeting in their own right, but just beautifully laid out in a way where it's the whole essence of archiving and making sure that those memories live on. I had seen this sooner, it would have definitely ended up in my top 10 watches of 2024, but Korea, get your shit together, honestly. In theaters, I caught The Brutalist out of 2024, finally hit theaters in Korea like mid-February, and I was just like, why did it take this long? Fun theater experience, script, direction itself, meek, very meek. It definitely needed a revision or two. A few edits near the end especially, because it was so lackluster in the way that the last 2 minutes of the film essentially spell out the entirety of the film, where the first half, really strong immigrant story, great performance from Adrian Brody, where it's this immense immigrant story and you have this great soundtrack that builds it all up. It's very colossal in a way. And because it's sort of a biopic of Louis Kahn as an architect, it's, yeah, bombastic, really ambitious, but it loses itself at post-intermission, where it then just becomes a checklist of the immigrant experience. And it does this like weird shift of POV near the end where I'm just like, I don't think this entirely works. So needed a few more edits. Fantastic theater experience, loved the soundtrack, but overall, 3.5 stars for me. I was hoping this would be sort of my tar of the year, and it kind of is, but meh, big meh. Next up, I watched Big World out of last year. This is about a boy with cerebral palsy and encounters the world in ugly ways and how the world doesn't appreciate people like him, while also dealing with a very harsh relationship between him and his mother, but aids in a way where he forms a beautiful relationship with his grandmother. This one I think was just too long. There's some Chinese movies that I'm just like, why is it 2 hours long? This is too much. It's aight, it's aight. There's this really great fight scene where it was the kind of fight where you wanted to say things. Ooh, okay. Sorry, Pato is texting me. I'm gonna reshoot this later, maybe. Okay, but really quickly, let me finish this one. It was okay. But if you're on the hunt for a really good fight scene, yeah, this one's good. It just says all the harsh things that you don't ever really mean, builds up in this grandiose, heart-wrenching way. And there's also this great, oh god, why did I say great? Suicide scene where our main character tries to choke himself to death by way of taffy. I just think, yeah, really, really heart-wrenching if you need, like, a sob story. Hey, mind the change in angle. Gonna move on here. Also watched A Streetcar Named Desire out of 1951, only because I read the Tennessee Williams play. Though I thought the play was fine, seeing it on the screen with Vivian Leigh as Blanche Dubois was incredible. She really creates this fully formed woman, out of her mind, but has this beautiful grace, and you really do care for her and all of her sorrows and worries. And also Marlon Brando, oh my god, in that tight white shirt and those biceps, oh god. Whew. Now I understand why everyone during that time had the hots for Marlon Brando. Really great. I've watched another Kazan film, I think it was East of Eden that he did, where he really pours out all of the feelings into the melodrama, so you really get this massive cinematic experience in terms of character and melodrama. And so he just does a wonderful job in his direction in creating scene, set, design with the players involved. It really is this like enriched, lived-in world that revolves around Blanche Dubois. In essence, each character then is more sung out of Tennessee Williams himself. Yeah, I thought this was just so, so grand. Loved this so much. Next, I watched a Mike Leigh film, Hard Truths, out of last year, and woof! It's about a woman who just lost her mother. She's the kind of woman that you would hate, the kind of woman that Larry David would hate and would despise. And she has all these like really, she's a bitter woman with too many opinions and so many irks and quirks, but it's also very funny. Marianne Jean-Baptiste in the film is incredible. She has a great range of feelings where at once she is funny, she is aggravating, but near the end and at the heart of it, does she really pull out an experience that is heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching. Yeah, I am so sad that she was not nominated and absolutely snubbed of an award, because this is just beyond anything. Anyway, Mike Leigh does a wonderful family drama, as he always does. I always feel like he understands families so much and different foils of characters, and it's done so well here. Very stripped back, almost feels like a play in essence. What else could we have expected other than great writing, great cast, and a well-rounded end with so many high notes. Next up, out of 2024, I did The Last Showgirl, directed by Gia Coppola, and God, this one was sadly a miss for me. I feel like Gia Coppola hasn't progressed as a director. I feel like she's still stuck in the same aesthetics over substance, where most of this just felt like Pamela Anderson gyrating against walls and spaces and such. Although Pamela does a wonderful performance, she actually, in connection to A Streetcar Named Desire, she plays in essence a Blanche Dubois, but in a ditzy kind of way. And it really works here. She becomes a big metaphor for vanity and wanting the past to still be present. It's about this Vegas showgirl, and the show is ending. And this is also someone who is living by bare means, paycheck to paycheck, and can barely make it. She sacrificed so much to remain in this space, to be part of this artistry, to the point where she compromised raising her daughter and the relationship with her daughter. And it really goes to show, like, is art worth living for? What do you compromise? Who do you hurt? And then what do you actually love? Like, where does love actually lie? Yeah, again, Pamela, wonderful performance. Perhaps her best, just under poor direction. I just don't think Gia Coppola has the chops to really direct films. I think she's just better suited, honestly, for music videos. I said it. I mean, I still love her vision and the dreamy quality that she has to her films, but they just haven't really substantiated in a way since Palo Alto. And that's sad in a way. Next up, out of 2023, I thought this was a 2024 release, but it is Sing Sing, about a theater prison group who have to put on a show. In the process of that, one of the players is waiting on a release from prison. Heart-wrenching, beautiful. It's cathartic in that way of like, what can art do for somebody? It's a release in some ways, and it's a release that most of us need to take. I've never understood when people say like they don't like art, because to me, I think art is so inherent to living. I think art is important in the way that it's much like air. In ways, it is therapeutic. It has to be, because it exercises demons. It is an exercise in pulling things out of your body and excavating for something larger than life. And I think that's why it's so important. And here it's just done so tenderly. You have all of these other inmates in different roles outside of themselves, but each person has a story upon the story that they're working on. And it's beautiful the way each one hashes out their stories. And I thought this one was so precious. Then out of 1987, I watched this 8-bit movie called The Flying Luna Clipper. And it's essentially a mood piece of different creatures, fruits, and vegetables that take a trip to Honolulu. And yeah, it's just really pretty to look at. It's one of those films that you want to fall asleep to. There's just something so nostalgic and precious about it. The news anchor is a talking banana in that like really sexy kind of way, like the green M&M kind of way. You know what I mean? This one was just really fun to like play in the background and doze off in. Then, out of 1993, I watched Get a Load of This. I killed my lesbian wife, hung her on a meat hook, and now I have a 3-picture deal at Disney. It is the directional debut from Ben Affleck, and this was awful. title says it all. It's like 15 minutes, not worth your time. And it's just god-awful. It almost feels like it was written by some angry, angsty teen boy. It's so anti-women in the way that it's not funny at all. It isn't a critique of anything, but it just literally just hates women. It's such an odd film. And honestly, what I'm wondering is whatever money funded this film could have paid off my student loans? Big question, big question. And then out of 1999, I watched, or rewatched really, Fiorucci Made Me Hardcore. This is essentially a archive piece of clubs and house music in the late 80s, early 90s in the UK. And I had first seen this last year in the summer in Shibuya at the Louis Vuitton Foundation. There's this great art space above the LV store. It's great. I love what they always do. They have a location here in Seoul. Saw this on the big screen in Shibuya and then decided to rewatch it now because I forgot to log it on Letterboxd my first time around. So I thought, you know what, let me do it again. It's just like a time capsule piece, and it's just so wonderful sometimes to look at film as a medium in order to capture moments like that, like documentaries in a way, where you get that time capsule and it exists. It's something, perhaps for that time, something that people didn't think twice of capturing, but it was captured and it still exists. And I think I spoke about this before, but it exists also as a sample off of a song from In Color by Jamie XX. It's at the end of Seesaw and leads into Obvious. And it's just a fantastic soundscape piece that is a great callback to house music at that time in the UK. It was wonderful second time around. And that's it. Those are all the films I watched in February. Let me know if you've seen any of these, and also let me know, have you watched a banger in February? Would like to know. Love constantly eating up cinema. As always, be well, do good work, keep in touch.